All right, welcome to the SnydeReport. I am your host, Gary Snyder. My guest today, as you can see his smiling face right next to me, that would be former DNC Chair Jaime Harrison. Jaime, welcome.
Thank you, Gary, so much. I really appreciate being on with you.
You know, and I'm sitting here because your head is not all shiny. It's kind of subdued, whereas mine is just, I can't figure out this lighting thing.
Well, one of the things that I got in when I was DNC chair is some this whole light situation going on here, so I can manipulate it, I can cool it down, I can warm it up. I'm almost an unprofessional tech.
You know, at some point I'll figure it out, and my forehead will not be blinding all of my guests and all of my viewers. How's it going since, I'll just say, your retirement from the DNC?
Yeah, it's sort of bittersweet. I really miss the people a lot, Gary. There's some tremendous people that I worked with at the DNC, and then some of the members. They're going to have a DNC meeting in August, and I think this will be the first DNC meeting that I have not attended in about 8 years. So I'm a little uneasy about it. When you've done something for so long and you really build a family, it's hard to distance yourself from it for a little bit. But I think Ken is stepping into his own. Things were a little rocky initially, but I think he really is finding his stride, and I'm proud of him and the things that he is doing, particularly as it relates to the investment in state parties.
Do you like the direction in which it's going then?
Yeah. Ken is about to do something that I think is necessary for us to have that big blue wave that we so desperately need in the midterms. You remember back in 2006 when Howard Dean initiated the 50-state strategy. Well,
Yes.
I think Ken and I both see ourselves as acolytes of Dean. When I was DNC chair, we dramatically increased the amount of money that we were sending to state parties. And Ken is about to take the level that we raised, to a whole nother level. When I first became state party chair here in South Carolina, we were only getting about $2,500 a month from the DNC. This fall, state parties in red states like South Carolina will be receiving $22,500 a month. I mean, that is significant cheddar that they can use to hire additional staff, have it be organizing staff, digital staff, or what have you, which means that they're going to be able to communicate more with the people on the ground. They're going to be able to organize more. They're going to be able to do more in terms of reaching voters. And that is a really important ingredient to winning these midterms.
Now, you did take the step and send state parties dollars from the national party, even here in Indiana. Maybe we didn't see the results that you were hoping, but how do you think that plays in the long run, even though you did not see the results you wanted immediately?
Yeah, well, and this is a long-term game, because people have to remember where we came from, right? Listen, the Obama years were great, but the one thing that was not great about it, it was a disinvestment or lack of investment in state parties at the DNC. Because remember, during that time, they had OFA running at the same time as running at the DNC. And so in essence, you're siphoning money from one organization in order to fund another organization. And then, the DNC, particularly the state parties, suffered as a result. So during that period, we lost over 1,000 state house seats across the country. Because
a lot of them here in Indiana,
because we did not have the infrastructure on the ground anymore. The national party was not investing in that infrastructure. We're only focused on the presidential and not focused on Democrats up and down the ballot. And so what we've been doing, and I give it to Tom Perez, to his credit, and I tried to add on it, and now Ken is adding on what I did, was to rebuild that infrastructure, because of the infrastructure that decade of losing ground in many red states. And so it's not going to be an instant transformation, but it's about building on that, building up the blocks. And eventually what I would hope to see is, like Obama won in 2008 in Indiana, I hope to see a Democrat win again in Indiana on the presidential level. I hope to see a Democrat winning in the South again. And I think that will happen, but you need these investments right now are necessary in order to get to that point.
When you take a look back at your term as chair, and especially last year during the elections, everybody likes to point to what went wrong. So I'm going to ask you what went wrong, but then take a minute to tell us what went right.
I mean, Gary, if you take a look at what happened in 2024, it's unprecedented. I mean, let's just step back and remember this. All of this happened in 1 year. We started off the year coming off of, Democrats beating back the big red wave. You remember the midterms, people thought that we were going to get wiped out. Well, we didn't get wiped out. We actually had the best midterms for an incumbent president, Democratic president, since the 1930s. I mean, we actually gained a Senate seat. Normally in the House, you lose, I think it's like 30 some odd seats in the average.
Well, it was going to be a red wave. I mean, that's all they talked about.
But what we did was the DNC invested over $100 million on the ground in all the states across the country. And then that was unprecedented because normally the DNC doesn't really play in the midterms. It's the DCCC and the DSCC and the DGA. But we were the biggest investor in that midterms election at the DNC. And I thank Joe Biden for that because Joe Biden was a party president. He believed in investing in the party, not just about his race, but all races. And that has not always been the case over the years. And so we beat back that red wave. We won, we kept the governorship in Kentucky. We came close in terms of Mississippi, Brandon running down there and Presley running in Mississippi. So we really invested in the infrastructure in those areas and we made gains in some areas. So we're riding off of that momentum. We come into 2024. President Biden does an amazing State of the Union address. As many people said, one of the best that they ever heard. And then Donald Trump gets convicted. Never in the history did you get a presidential nominee that is a convicted felon 34 times. And then, we're moving along. Things are going along. And then it's the debate. Probably one of the worst debate performances that we've ever seen. But instead of Democrats doing what the Republicans did in terms of rallying around Donald Trump after his conviction, we didn't. Right? We do what Democrats normally do, right? It's the hand wringing and everything else. And so, the pressure is building. Joe Biden eventually decides to get out. There's only 100 and some odd days until the election. Then shortly after that, Donald Trump gets an assassination attempt, right? Kamala Harris gets the nomination. She has a week and a half to find a VP nominee. And then we go to the convention. We have one of the best conventions ever in the history of the party. She does a debate with Donald Trump. She waxes his ass on the debate stage.
That's been kind.
I mean, she demolished him, right? And I think, Gary, a lot of people forget that all of these things were all happening in 1 year, right? I mean, she had great rallies and stuff all around the country. I thought there was such tremendous momentum. And then we end up losing. That election night, I remember calling a few of the pollsters that we had working across the state, and I said, "Give me your honest assessment. How you feel?" And they're like, "We think we're going to pull this off. This is election night." But we didn't, man. And it's something that still lingers with me and haunts me because we see what the end result is. This country is getting decimated. It is getting destroyed. America as we know it it's going to take us generations to rebuild America as we know it because of the destruction that we're getting right now from this president. And so, yeah,
Jaime.
No,
go ahead.
So there are a lot of things that I wish the campaign would have done. I did not always agree with some of the decisions made by some of the leadership. I think Kamala Harris did every single thing that she could do in her power, but I think she's different from the campaign. The candidate has to focus on doing what the candidate can do. And then there's the campaign infrastructure that she's not really running. She's focused on running a race. And so, there are mistakes being made. We can be the morning. We can try to dissect it
Beat a dead
and
horse.
all, but I do know everybody worked as hard as they possibly could to try to win this. But sometimes you just can't win.
Can you hold through a quick break? When we come back with Jaime Harrison, we'll talk about what he's up to now and about where he thinks we're heading as a country in 2025 and 26. You're listening to the Snide Report. I am Gary Snyder. All right, this is the part of the Snide Report where we thank our sponsors, and we have a growing list. So let's start with Robin Winston. Robin has been there when we first sent out our first email, 147 subscribers. We're now over 108,000. So thank you, Robin Winston, and helping us get the podcast going in the right direction. Next up is our good friend, former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson. Her book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America. Get that anywhere you buy your books. Also, former two-term governor, two-term U.S. Senator Evan Bayh. Evan has been a sponsor of the newsletter, now jumps on board with the podcast. Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman Carson has been there from the start. We're glad to have him over here on the newsletter now. He needs your help to win re-election next year. So make sure you support Congressman Carson. Next up, State Representative Cherish Pryor. Cherish has been there from the start on the newsletter, joining us on the podcast now. So is State Senator Greg Taylor. I want to thank Senator Taylor for all of his support through the years. Next, we have a couple of new sponsors. First up is Indiana Citizen. You want to check out their new project, One Heartbeat Away. Do Christian nationalists have an agenda for Indiana? All you have to do is look at the lieutenant governorship and you can see right away that they do. So thank you, Indiana Citizen. Next up is Jump Laundry. You can visit them at jumplaundry.com. They have home pickup. They do your dry cleaning, wash and fold with, I might add, no judgments, and next day service. So if you're in a crunch for time, you don't want to do your own laundry, get a hold of Jump Laundry at jumplaundry.com or at 317-740-5011, and they will take care of all of your laundry needs. Welcome back to the Snide Report. I am your host, Gary Snyder. We are speaking today with former DNC Chair Jaime Harrison. Jaime, as you take a look at what Trump is doing now, I don't think anyone should be surprised. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. I don't think that many people expected that he would go to the extremes that he is when it comes to redistricting, both in Texas. We just had J.D. Vance here in Indiana, and they're looking at maybe trying to get rid of Frank Mervan and Andre Carson by divvying those districts up. Did this catch us off guard? And if it did, it seems like Gavin Newsom and in California and Pittsburgh in Illinois and over in New York, they've come back strong and said, if you're going to do this, so are we, even worse. So is that where we're headed,
Gary? It is this past time for the Democrats to fight fire with fire. I'm a big believer in fair districts. I believe that gerrymandering is a cancer to our democracy, to the body politic. But I also am a firm believer that Democrats can't just have fair districts in their blue states while Republicans gerrymander the hell in red states. I mean, you can't have one side that follows rules and the others that don't. It's either we're all going to jump in together or we're all going to we're all going to boil together, right? It's just that's where we are, and I am so happy to see the strength coming from Pritzker and from Newsom and from Hochul to say, you know what? if you're going to go down this road, Greg Abbott, then we're going to go down this road with you, arm in arm. And that's what I think that's what Democrats want right now from our leaders. They want us to fight. Give the Republicans just as much, if not more, than what they're giving the nation. Excuse me. And so,
you know, I've been saying this for a while that, and I said I ran for Congress in 2022 against Jim Banks, ended up losing horribly because, hey, it's Indiana. But I've said for a long time that do you want to be right or do you want to win? And so when I heard Beto say that at a town hall, I had him on last week, and we went into that a little more. Is that the route we need to take?
A lot of folks, and you know, I'm having disagreements with some of my friends who I love and believe in, but you know, these moral victories aren't victories when they're cutting and gutting Medicaid and Medicare and everything else. When you know, and I had this conversation with Newsom in 2022. I think he and I met at the Hay Adams in Washington, D.C. for breakfast. And I told him then, I said, you know, I know you guys have those commissions. And this was after seeing what the Republicans were doing in North Carolina. And you saw what they did there. I mean, those folks have tried every single thing. Hell, they just tried to steal a North Carolina Supreme Court race. Right after the election, they tried to throw out the votes of folks. They have gutted. Yes.
And came close to winning.
They came close.
That's the thing. They
gutted
close.
The power of the governor because they knew that a Democrat was going to be in the governor's mansion. They've gutted the power of the attorney general. You know, we know that they don't follow any rules. And so we have to stop tying one arm behind our back and saying, oh, well, you know, we're sticking to our values and this and that. Because in the end of the day, our people are suffering when these people pass these draconian bills that benefit the rich and hurt working people in this country. So, you know, the moral victories are no victories. Not when you have a despot in the White House. Not when you have, you know, fascist rubber stampers in the Congress, right? Not when you have a Supreme Court, the worst Supreme Court since the Taney. I just wrote an op-ed about on Substack how this Roberts Court is probably the worst court that we've had since the Taney court that came out with Dred Scott because of the systematic destruction of our fundamental rights and freedoms in this nation. And so we got to stop playing Potter Puff football here and put on the real pads and get ready to have the fight of our lives to save this democracy.
You know, Republicans will do whatever they have to gain power. Democrats need to realize that and start doing the same thing. Real quick before we head into what you're doing now, prediction for next year, House, Senate.
And even before all this redistricting stuff, I think that 2026 is going to mirror 2006. And you remember what happened then. We came off a big election, a demoralizing election in 2004. Many of us thought John Kerry was going to win. We had great candidates running for the U.S. Senate across the South. We got wiped out. I think in 2004, the only person that really won that was significant was Barack Obama in Illinois. I mean, it was a demoralizing loss for Democrats. But what happened was we brushed ourselves off. We got back on the bike. We invested in our infrastructure in our state parties. We recruited the best set of candidates that we've ever had. And we won the House, we won the Senate, and then that led us to winning the White House back in 2008. And I believe that history is going to repeat itself. Very, very similar. I believe that we are going, despite all of this gerrymandering BS that we see from Trump and the Republicans, I think the American people are going to be fed up because of Republican overreach, and I believe we'll win the House. I think we'll come close in the Senate. I know we're recruiting some really good candidates. And then I think that will set us up to win back the White House in 2028. So my prediction is, you know, we will get the House back. We will have a Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, and provide the much needed check on the despot that we have in the White House right now.
You know, I don't think you're wrong. I really don't. Now you're on my podcast right now, the SnydeReport, in your retirement from the DNC. You have started your own podcast. Tell us
Yeah,
a little
well,
bit
it's
about it
called
in the
At
time we
Our
have left.
Table, and you can find it on atourtablepodcast.com or wherever you find podcasts. And Gary, it really has been great. I've enjoyed doing it so much. We've had some great guests so far. We had Hunter Biden, we had Governors Tim Walz, Andy Beshear, Wes Moore, and today's episode, Tuesday, we have Dr. Annie Andrews, who's running for the U.S. Senate against Lindsey Graham. So it's something I know a lot about. And so, part of it is it's family talk. It's just people that I have relationships with, and we're having conversations that you normally would not see on cable news, right? It's long form conversations.
Right.
It's, getting an understanding of their why. Why are they doing this? Why are they fighting so hard? What are their fears? What are their motivations? What are their ambitions? And so I've really enjoyed it. It's been great conversations, and we got some other great guests coming up soon. And so I hope folks will go to atourtablepodcast.com, sign up, or go to jamieharrison.com and you can get it there. But sign up and subscribe and listen.
One of the nice things about podcasts, and you get to talk to so many people. I mean, never in my lifetime would I ever have thought I would interview the Fonz or Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. Andy Beshear, I had him on about a month ago. You can go down like Don Rumsfeld. So it's amazing the number of people that you get to talk to in a way that you wouldn't normally get to talk to them, and in a way that maybe they're not used to talking to you in a regular interview.
My biggest criticism of the media these days is, they create caricatures of folks, and people are three-dimensional. They are three-dimensional. And many times what you see in politics is that your opponents define you instead of you defining yourself. And you really don't get an opportunity to do it in most interviews and with the media. And, that's part of the reason why I wanted Hunter Biden to be on. And, let him say who he is in his own words, and then you decide. Yeah, and then you decide whether you like him or not, right?
Great interview.
So that's really, really important to me. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity, and best of luck.
I'm Gary Snyder. He is not. He is Jaime Harrison. This is the SnydeReport, and we are out.